Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is George Lyons and you're watching Stockonomics, where football meets economics. On today's show, we'll be talking about one of the most trending and talked about roles in football, that is the director of football. So what is a director of football and why are they so important in the modern game? Let's start off by having a look at the structure of a football club. At the top of the tree, we've got the chairman. Now, the chairman can be either the owner of the football club, or you could leave that for someone else to take control of. And underneath them is the board of directors. Between them, they discuss decisions based around the functionality of the club. So appointing a new manager or approving plans for a new stadium to increase their capacity to increase the revenue of the club. Now, underneath the board of directors, we've got the chief executive officer, otherwise known as the CEO. Now, his role in the club is one of the most important roles there is. He has to not only communicate with all departments of the football club, he has to overlook the functionality of the whole club. He even does things like negotiating contracts with brand new players. Underneath the CEO, that's where the club starts to separate into different departments. So you've got your human resources department, your marketing team, even your finances. But the most important department that we're looking at today is the actual football department. This is where the director of football is, and underneath them is the manager, the players, and the medical team. The director of football is actually the link between the CEO and the manager. But this wasn't always the case. The director of football is actually a relatively new role created to fill the gap created by the growth of football. Before then, the football department was governed simply by a manager and an executive. The manager would take care of the results on the pitch, and the executive would take care of the finances. And between them, they would take care of player signings. Now, this required a really strong relationship between the manager and the executive. For a long time, this system worked. However, football is becoming so much more competitive and clubs are under so much more pressure to succeed that if a club isn't enjoying the success that they want, they have to actually sack the manager to replace them with a new one to get that success. Over the last 30 years, the lifespan of a manager at any one club has decreased. When before it was about 2 or 3 years, maybe even more, now it's averaging only 14 months. 14 months! When a club brings in a new manager, he tends to be different to the old manager. He tends to have a different style of play, and he'll want to sign players of his own to suit that style of play. Now, if the players already at the club don't suit his style of play, they are then to be sold or released to make room for new players. The plans put in place by the old manager are now being thrown out the window by the new manager and started all over again. You can imagine this isn't a very sustainable way of running a club. It's costly and it's volatile, and you're essentially rebuilding the squad every 14 months. So it's understandable that the board is reluctant to give so much authority to a position that's so transient. This is where the director of football comes in. They ensure there's stability and consistency to protect the club from the risk of financial decisions. They tend to be educated with real life experiences. Economists are actually a really good example of this and are a common suitor. But they also require business acumen, knowledge of football, but also need leadership and negotiation skills as well. They try to best use the finite resources that a club has to create as much success in a consistent amount of time. Only a small amount of clubs actually have the money to buy their success. So other clubs, in order to be more competitive, have to be smart with their investments, especially in 3 key areas. That is transfers and recruitment, the youth development, and the philosophy of the club. In terms of the philosophy of the club, the director of football is responsible in identifying the style of play the team should have, and then appoint a manager that has a similar style of play who can then implement that on the field with the players. A great example of a team philosophy is that of Liverpool's. Now, their philosophy is fast attacking football, and that's implemented by their coach Jurgen Klopp, whose style of play is just that. When a coach moves on from a club, rather than throwing away the old plans to make room for the new coach's philosophy, the director of football actually appoints a manager with a very similar philosophy and style of play as the one before. That way they can continue with the philosophy. Not only this, but the current players at the club are actually suited to the style of play of that manager. There's less wastage and there's less room for replacement players. Now, this is all well and good, but of course there's going to be a time where signings are going to have to be made. But what is the best way to go about it? Like I said, only a small number of clubs actually have the money to buy their success. So the trick is to try and sign future stars before they're uncovered. This is another role that the director of football has, as he's responsible for getting the best scouting team to find potential suitors. The player not only has to be affordable, but he has to suit the team's philosophy. He has to be able to fill a role in the squad like a blueprint. Some examples of great signings in recent times are Roberto Firmino, Andy Robertson, Dele Alli, and James Maddison, just to name a few. All bought at a low cost and developed over time into top class players, and are now worth double, triple, even quadruple of their initial price. Finally, the third sector that the director of football is responsible for is the youth system. They not only need to make sure that transition is smooth, but also successful. If you can sign young talents and nurture them into the next Messi, That's a much better use of your resources than spending hundreds of millions of dollars just to sign them. That's why youth academies like that of Ajax and La Masia at Barcelona are world famous. They produce world-class talents year in, year out. And especially in the case of Ajax, they tend to sell their youth academy players for huge profits, reinvesting that back into the youth academy of their club. Now that's a much more sustainable way of running a club. They even use the same formation all the way through their grades up until the first team to make sure that transition is as smooth as possible. Just to give you a bit of perspective on how successful Ajax's youth academy is, take a look at their Champions League campaign last season. They got all the way up to the semi-finals, only falling to the last hurdle against Tottenham Hotspur. They also knocked out Juventus and Real Madrid on the way. And against Real Madrid, their 11 players on the pitch actually cost less than just one of their players. So there you have it. That's what a football director is. Now, not every club actually has a football director, but it's becoming increasingly more necessary for your club to appoint one in the modern game. Manchester United, for example, don't have one, and it's beginning to show. No two managers are the same in terms of playing style, and the players that have been signing over the past couple of years have actually been marquee signings, as in they've been signed based on their name or their individual ability, not around whether they suit the team's style of play. Therefore, it's no surprise that they haven't been performing since the departure of Sir Alex Ferguson and David Gill. So there you go, Manchester United fans, I've solved your issue. You just have to appoint a director of football and you'll be back up with the big dogs. If only it was that simple. Well, that's it guys. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please leave a like down below and subscribe. And apart from that guys, thank you so much for watching and I'll catch you next week.
Yeah. Wasted all my time, now I keep it to myself. I don't really love you, I don't really need your help. I don't want your money, you don't empathize yourself. You don't want my comfort, I don't want your comfort. You're always on my mind and I can call you bluffing. And now I need that something, I just want that something. But if they hate you, won't be fixing where that comes from. And if I make